morning, everybody. Welcome to Impact and Coffee. I'm Robert Nelson. I'm the program manager for Pivotal New Mexico. And I am joined this morning by my wonderful co-host, Michael Green. How are you, Michael?
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm well, thank you. I hope everyone else is doing well. How are you, Robert?
All right. You know, it's colder outside. I like that. It's a sign of fall. So, yeah. And I'm just glad to be back at Impact and Coffee with my coffee. What is Impact and Coffee, Michael?
Cool. So Impact and Coffee is an open, welcoming conversation to exchange stories and ideas to foster innovation, to strengthen the nonprofit sector, and to build community. So typically we have done this when we meet in person. We do it at the Albuquerque Community Foundation. And we also get to enjoy coffee from Lily Marie's Coffee. So shout out to both of those organizations for helping us get Impact and Coffee up and running. So hopefully soon we'll be back in person. Yeah, stay tuned. So, we can figure out when we do go back in person, but yeah, thank you all for joining us today. So today is Tuesday, and we like to practice Gratitude Tuesday every Tuesday. So yeah, I would encourage you all to introduce yourselves in the chat and also put something that you're grateful for, because it's a nice way to kind of start the day on a positive note. And I guess I'm thankful for wearing long sleeves. I love cooler weather. I love just being able to bundle up and stay warm. So that's one of the things that I'm grateful for, this weather season change. How about you, Robert? What are you grateful for today?
I am also grateful for colder weather and the change of season, but I'm also grateful for my family. To see them this last weekend in Carlsbad, New Mexico. So, and got to catch up and hang out and also pack up my childhood belongings, which I thought was really interesting. So I've reduced my childhood memories to like one single box. So grateful for family, grateful for those kind of things. And as Michael said, yeah, please introduce yourselves in the chat, share your name, your pronouns, your organization, and let us know what you're grateful for on this Gratitude Tuesday. But the announcements we have. So we are also the sponsors of the Next Gen In Award. So we've actually upped the award amount to $2,500. So if you know anyone that's interested in building capacity with nonprofit organizations, let us know. We have about 4 awards left. And so if you know anyone that's interested in applying for that award, or you yourself want to apply for the award, let us know. You can ask Michael or I, or any of our other Impact and Coffee members on the call today. There's Denise and Abby. We love our Impact and Coffee team. Make this happen every week. Also Danny from Sync, and Jermaine Mitchell, who's out, I think just came back from New Orleans. So helping out her family after Hurricane Ida. So Michael, are there any other announcements you want to add?
That's all I can think of right now. I think we've covered it all. So yeah, thank you all again for joining us today. So do you want to do the introduction for the first speaker presenter, Robert?
Sure. Proud to introduce Beverly McMillan over at Family Advocacy Center and United Way. I think and United Way. I know Beverly's been a regular guest over at Impact and Coffee, so we're glad to have her back. Welcome, Bev, and good morning, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning, Robert. Good morning, Michael, and good morning to a lot of my friends that I see that are on the video. I see Amy, I see Tracy, there's Delma. So thanks for joining me this morning. And it looks like I have some new friends as well, too. Just going to take you through, since October is Domestic Violence Month, just making sure that you have the awareness of what services that are out there and everybody can take advantage of. So I'm going to share my screen to take you through a tour. Hello. Thanks for visiting the webpage of the Albuquerque Family Advocacy Center, or what we call as the FAC. My name is Bev McMillan. I'm the Fundraising Marketing Coordinator here at the FAC. The Family Advocacy Center offers wraparound services for victims and survivors who are suffering any type of interpersonal violence, all up under one roof. We want you to know the FAC is a safe zone. The services we offer are both free and confidential. We have varied lists of agencies to assist, and they work together as a team to ensure that you are serviced adequately. immediately. Here's a list of our on-site providers. The assistance that can be obtained from these services are quite comprehensive, whether it's developing a safety plan for you and your family, medical exams, counseling services with social workers, along with referrals to agencies who partner with the Family Advocacy Center. There are also provisions for gaining access to food, clothing, or even finding temporary housing. Our legal services includes assistance with filing a police report, as well as protection report. The Albuquerque Police Department is a partner of the Family Advocacy Center, assisting in making sure that the center is a safe zone. Don't wait if you need these services. Please reach out if you have experienced domestic violence, child sexual abuse, sexual assault, or rape. The FAC is located downtown at 625 Silver Street Southwest, Suite 200. Now that's between 6th and 7th Street. You can reach us at 505-243-2333, Monday through Friday between the hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. No appointment necessary.
My name is Jennifer Jassif, and I'm a domestic violence survivor. When I left my abuser, I left with nothing. I was $25,000 in debt and had nothing to show for it. Right now, I'm managing a business. I'm happily married. I own a home. All those things were possible because I found support when I needed it. I was really grateful to find an organization that could help me rebuild my life.
Please reach out today to gain access to these wraparound services. Thank you. Hi, thank you for indulging me this morning. I decided to do that instead of a PowerPoint presentation, and since all of us have been Zoomified over the last 18 months, I thought something instead of talking at you through a PowerPoint, it gives you a real-time scope of what is actually going on at the FAC. The Family Advocacy Center stood up on October 23rd, 2007. So we're coming up on our 14th year this month, and we're going to have a celebration on October 23rd to signify that. But it is still, in some ways, a well-kept secret to many people. Now, that has some good parts to it, and it has some not so good parts to it, because we want to make sure people are understanding what services they have available to them. The great part to it, it is confidential, it's obscure, and a lot of individuals don't know exactly what goes on in that building, especially on the second floor. They're at 625. So we'll make sure that we actually have that. Now, when we talk about what has happened to us over the last 18 months, I saw an uptick in the data. In the year of 2019, we actually served approximately 5,900 clients. Last year, we served over 8,100. And what we saw, we believe and have believed that there's ramifications behind COVID. There was more DV cases, or at least more reported DV cases, or we saw an uptick in sexual assault cases that are coming through. And literally, we have seen a spike since June this year in sexual assault cases. And there's a new data point that we're recognizing or noticing, increase in sexual assault on human trafficking individuals. So we're seeing that actually coming through and not knowing what that is all about. So we want to make sure that we are capturing the correct data and finding out exactly what we're doing. So one of the things is like, I want to talk about going forward is how do we start preventing that cycle of behavior that goes on in families? So there's a lot of talk around. There's an affinity group that we have in United Way that's called Guys Give. And we're talking about Guys Give taking on some type of mentorship in the middle schools and making sure that we're going to say, this is how you go about your daily life in dating, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. No means no. And if we can stop the cycle on the beginning, the back half, we think that we can secure and save individuals and making sure that they understand what the ramifications are. So if we begin to teach young men and young students like what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, then we'll think that we'll have lesser cases on the back end. But the other piece is we want to make sure that individuals are reporting in a timely manner, because a lot of times it's like, oh, my partner didn't mean it. My partner is going to apologize to me. And sometimes the partner does apologize to them. We start the cycle all over again. But what's not good about it is a lot of times, in most cases, children are in this quandary, and they'll actually see the children will actually witness this violence. So children begin to believe that that is the norm within the family. We are going to start looking at a housing situation for domestic violence victims. So I'll give you a really good, interesting thing that we're dealing with right now with Balloon Fiesta. And this just came up because last year we didn't have this problem. So rape crisis centers, the sexual assault nurses in DVRC actually have a contract with Drury Inn. They're on I-25 and the Ambassador Motel there nearby I-25 as well. So normally our pay rate there is between $89 and $109, depends on how many beds are in the room. Well, this week and next week, or the 2 weeks of Balloon Fiesta, those rates have gone up to $400, and they unleashed the blocks. So that's a problem. So, you know, for not-for-profits, that hits a budget, a line item. So we've been scrambling to try to figure out where we could get housing, because the Balloon Fiesta is going on, and I know that's an economic development impact for the city and the state, but these other things are still happening, and we have to still conduct business. So we were able to get some of our leaders, Teresa Ledger Hernandez's office, actually we got her involved, Brian Colon, we got him involved, and they were able to come up with some solutions. We reached out to the city with Gilbert Ramirez. He was able to provide us some resources and some supplies and some other entities as far as hotels were concerned, to make sure that we were still servicing the clients, because a temporary housing stay might be 3 to 5 days until we can actually get them into a shelter. So it's different components like that that we would actually understand and know that we are dealing with family violence, domestic violence, and just making sure that we actually have the resources that are going forward. Last year, I'm going to move to how we are trying to build resiliency too. We stood up a coding camp class, and it is, I'm sorry, I was just getting somebody's in urgent care. A message just came across to me. We want to make sure that the family are building resiliency. So we partnered with CNM, and they actually developed a coding class. So UX, UI, user experience, user integration, where we taught students how to build applications on phones, how to build up website. And we actually had 3 graduates that came through. Fast forward to this year, those individuals a year later, they're making anywhere from $75,000 to $90,000 a year. 15-week course, 10 hours a week. They had an individual project, they had a team project. What was impressive, CNM put together an employer introduction on graduation day. So on graduation day, they were able to do their presentations, and they were able to actually secure employment. Some of it was contracting work at first, but now some of them are in full gainful employment. And one individual actually has gone back into the classroom to assist other individuals that are suffering at the hands of interpersonal violence and trying to get out of the system as well. So my thought process there, you know, these are services, and that's called giving fish. What I wanted to do is to teach how to fish, so we can make families to be self-sufficient and gain that access as far as being self-sufficient is concerned. I'm going to stop talking now and just take questions. Or if you want me to not take questions, Robert, and we can turn this over to Joan.
No, it's all good. I think we can definitely turn over to questions.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your video, and thank you for explaining more of the services and what's going on with your work. And I guess I will ask anybody to invite anybody to unmute and ask questions if you'd like, or just drop it in the chat and we'll lift it up.
Good morning, everybody. This is Jermaine Mitchell. Good morning, Bev. That was a fabulous presentation.
Good morning.
I do have a quick question, especially in community where there are planned activities and planned events. I'm just wondering, when that planning take place, is there a conversation or is there anyone at the table to remind these decision makers that we still have to take care of individuals here at home? And if there are hotel rooms blocked specifically for domestic violence clients, those rooms should not be touched.
I don't think we had this situation before. At least I wasn't recognizing it before. And like last year, Jermaine, this wasn't something that we had to deal with because we didn't even have Balloon Fiesta week or the 2 weeks. But Brian Colon actually suggested that we do a sit down after the Balloon Fiesta is over with to talk about individuals. So you're on point. And that is the right thing to do because it's like, well, everything still goes on. Life goes on in Albuquerque within itself. That we love the Balloon Fiesta. We know it brings economic development to us, and the money that comes to the small vendors and the small businesses. Sometimes what I've heard before, like 75% of small businesses actually reap during this time. These 2 weeks is kind of like Christmas in October for a lot of these smaller businesses, and I know they count on that to actually survive. But what you're right, there needs to be a conversation at the table. So we're going to move that forward and make sure that we're talking to individuals, because this is the first time that I noticed that it happened. Vince Galbiati got me involved here over at DVRC. And we just happened to be talking last week, and he halfway mentioned it to me, and I was like, well, talk to me about this again. And immediately I start reaching out for resources. Thank you for the question, Jermaine, and welcome back home.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jermaine, and welcome back home too. Anyone else have any other questions? I just left a note in the chat that said if you have questions, you can drop them there too. Bev, what are some things that you're, I know you listed something. What are some things you're excited for 2022 for FAC?
Well, I don't know. The legislature is just coming up right now. And I have actually talked to a couple of the representatives to talk about should some laws be changed on the books as far as domestic violence is concerned, or family violence. So I'll give you an example. One day, the police brought in a young woman and her baby, and what happened was her and her brother got into an altercation in the car. He pushes her out and her baby in a moving car. So when they brought her over to the center, we checked her out. And then she had a sister down, I believe in Berlin, who worked a second shift. And she just needed a place to be, a respite center for probably about 24 hours until the sister could get off of work at 4 o'clock in the morning. And so we were checking with the shelters, and no shelter would take her or even let her stay on the couch, because how the grants are written up, they only had to service people that had interpersonal violence, so it was partner violence. And this was considered family violence. My thing was, it was violence. Let's get her into a shelter, let's secure her. So I think we need to talk about what some wiggle room in some of the laws and standards are, because I think a lot of these laws that we have that are surrounding domestic violence or interpersonal violence stops us from doing the work. It took about 5 years before the law from choking, and that choking law was actually passed probably about a couple years ago, because what happens when an individual is choked during an attack, and if they don't get to some type of services, it depends on where they were choked, especially here around the carotid artery, but a carotid artery can be broken like this. Within 72 hours, that person can have a massive stroke. So what we were trying to do is get more laws on the books so the person can add more sentence time to their sentencing, in making sure that jail time was extended because of that, because you can kill a person from choking. So it's different components. No, it's not a funder issue. It's a law issue, because the funding that we actually have there is what they're actually saying to do. They cannot actually take an individual when they're actually, if it's not an interpersonal violence. So it's how, like, sometimes the grant is written up, but giving these individuals and these agencies flexibility to move past some of those things that can be tricky, that it doesn't have to be 1 through 10, because life is not like 1 through 10 and it's just solid. Things will actually happen. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Pamela Herndon, I believe she is in District 29, and I have given her several things as far as domestic violence to take to the roundhouse. Now, I know that the conversation will just need to begin, because this session is only a 30-day session coming up in 2022, so they won't have a lot of time to look at a lot of things. But I think what's going to be on the legislation that is pushing is more gun laws this time around in the legislation. So that's what I'm looking forward to, and just making sure that people understand where the services are at. So we need to do more of a marketing component. We've got more money to do marketing as far as the FAC is concerned, and we're getting more people involved and volunteers.
That's really helpful. I appreciate that analysis for the upcoming legislative session, which is a short session this year. So I know it's going to be a fun 30 days this January.
It's going to be packed.
Yeah. Just going to invite anyone else to unmute if you have questions. Michael, do you have any questions?
Yeah, so have you partnered with any other organizations in the past year during COVID that you'd like to talk about? Because we always like to hear, because we've noticed that especially during the COVID times, a lot of partnerships have been created and stuff. So we'd love to hear about maybe some that your organization has cultivated recently.
Well, COVID actually, I think as a community, drew us all together. I'm looking at Amy from Abrazos, and I've seen her a couple times. People were actually giving us donations, so that I had masks, I had PPE supplies that were actually donated to me, and truckloads of masks. I had to reach out to the community and said, please come help me, because I didn't have a storage room to actually take those. So I see more of a component of us working together. We have a partnership with General Mills, and they were able to bring us breakfast bars, and we actually reached out to ABC Community Schools, and actually we shared that with them. So what's up and coming now, and I've been working behind the scenes in this. Cora is an organization that develops personal care products for women, and they actually have a partnership with United Way Worldwide. So in the next week or two, I will be receiving 14 pallets of personal care items for women that will be coming through. So it's interesting when I start putting the phone calls out, looking at the different agencies. And so I've taken care of all the local shelters. I've taken care of the homeless shelters like Barrett House and Heading Home, and just different agencies. And if anybody on this call can give me other names, because each pallet has 75,000 units of personal care items on it. And I can tell you, I can't take 14 times 75,000 units down at the Family Advocacy Center. That would actually cover the floor, the entire floor of those truckloads and individuals. So what I've seen is more work and collaborations, because once I started calling people, they were like, what do you know about this organization? Call this. So I was able to get East Central Ministries involved. I think it's called Street Safe. I was able to reach out to them as well. And then they start calling saying, do you know about this person? And so we're going to be able to receive those goods. The distribution is going to happen at the United Way office in the parking lot, since there's not many cars. So I'll be able to bring people in, use pallet dividers, bring the pallets down, and actually get pallets out to individuals. So Michael, to your point, I saw more of an increase of partnership. And yes, there was an increase of domestic violence that actually happened during COVID in 2020. As I stated earlier, the stats that I saw from 2019 was 5,900. And for 2020, it was 8,100 individuals that we actually serve. Yes, I have All Faith, I have Catholic Charities, and I have Roadrunner Food Bank that's already involved in that core donation. So thank you for that. And so we'll be able to get those truckloads out. So they're already on my listing. And the other partnership is we had a case that came in January. Two young girls, one age 19, one was 12. The 12-year-old was actually blind. Their stepfather shot and killed their mother in front of a church in front of them. And so all of a sudden they're homeless. The 19-year-old is scheduled to graduate in May. She was going to drop out of school so she could take care of her younger sister. And we're like, that can't happen. She's too close to graduation, 5 months out. So it was Catholic Charities, it was CVRC that stepped in, United Way Worldwide assisted me and stepped in, and we took care of a full year's rent. So the individual could stay in her, we actually found her an apartment for her and her sister. She had a part-time job. She was working at PetSmart because that's what she was going to do. She was going to go full-time. And we're like, no, we have to get you graduated. Let's fast forward to October right now. The young lady has been enrolled in CNM. She wants to become a nurse at some point in time. So she's trying to get her CNA licenses, and so she's on her way. So Michael, as to your point, we pull from different agencies, and that's how we actually survive. And Robert knows this, and many individuals on this call know this. We can't, one agency standing alone cannot do this. So we actually work together, we make phone calls, and we know each other. So sometimes if I can't help you, I know somebody that probably can help you.
That's really helpful, Bev. I appreciate it. And you're absolutely right. I think, and that's something I think the pandemic has brought us all together. So hopefully, that will continue as we get out of it. I know I was making a comment earlier that, new COVID cases are down across this country by 30% since November 1st. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, I saw that data point this morning, and they were even talking about it's the younger patients, it's down there, which I'm thrilled about now that the vaccines are out for that age group.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to end with this last question, which is, and then we'll move on to our next speaker. But Joan, we really appreciate you being here this morning again. And what is it our community can do for y'all today?
Let people know that the services are involved. I'm going to send out to you, Robert. We used to have a trifold of services of what we actually have. Now it's a front and back, it's one card. I will get that out to you to let you know that what we do, how we do it, and how we can get people across to the services. Because one thing that we actually saw during COVID, when there was days that this center was shut down, although if we actually had a person that had been sexually assaulted, we were able to still do exams. So it was like an on-call basis. So we want to make sure that people know that the services are there, because it's still a mystery, and making sure that we're advertising it. So like if you have a web page, a website, we'll send you up the logo. I'll send you the back and forth card so you can actually put that on your website as well, to make sure that they understand the services there, because that's something that you don't talk about personally. Hi, my name is Bev, and I suffer from at the hands of interpersonal violence. You don't say that. But if somebody is suffering silently, making sure that they get the information, please come forward so we can assist you and we can get you back on the road to healing and resiliency.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Can we have this really big virtual round of applause for Beverly McMillan this morning? Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
Michael, I'm going to pass to you and to introduce our next guest. And Bev, thank you so much again. If you could, Bev, could you send your contact information in the chat. We'd love to follow up with you with any other engagement pieces. So thank you again.
All right. So yeah, thank you again, Bev, for your presentation today. We really appreciate it, and we love hearing about the great things that are happening in the community. So our next speaker for today is going to be Joan, and she is from the New Mexico Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice. It's kind of a handful. Joan, I'm going to pass it over to you, and we're really excited to hear about your organization and all the great things that you're doing to help the community in Albuquerque. So take it away, Joan.
Yeah, thanks so much. Happy to be here. So the New Mexico Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice is one of about a dozen state affiliates of the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice based in DC. We are one of two affiliates that also is part of the National Network of Abortion Funds, which is an organization of almost 80 organizations, mostly in the US, but some internationally, that help people access abortion care by fundraising to cover clinic fees. And then also the side of that we take on is what's called practical support. So that is taking care of all those other things, those logistical things like travel, place to stay, meals, prescriptions, just all of those other things that can get in the way of people accessing health care, especially reproductive health care. One of your questions was, how has the pandemic exacerbated existing inequities? And some of you might remember in the spring of 2020, many states, especially Texas, used the pandemic as an excuse to close abortion clinics, at least temporarily. That went back and forth in the courts. And so, of course, because New Mexico has common sense, reasonable laws around accessing reproductive health care, that meant a lot of people had to come to Albuquerque from other states, especially Texas. And so we definitely saw an increase in our callers. And we use the word callers because we're not a clinic, we're not a medical facility. So patients is inappropriate, and clients is a little too clinical for us. So we use the word callers to define the people who reach out to us for assistance. What was interesting, though, is once those clinics reopened, we've continued to see more people coming to New Mexico to access reproductive health care. And we think that's because for most people who were already living on the margins, of course, life is harder than it's ever been. And many of them are deciding it's just not the right time to grow their family. So we're here as a faith-rooted organization to make sure that we do those things that our denominations, our traditions share, which is to care for the stranger among us, care for travelers, and care for those who are less fortunate or who need some help, at least at this time. We do that with the help of some amazing volunteers and our donors. We did have to put our homestay volunteers on a pause during COVID, and we're still doing that. And so we relied on our donors to help us pay for several hotel rooms every week. And now we brought our drivers back on duty. So they're helping us out, taking people back and forth to their appointments. And we like to remind them that sometimes they tell us it feels like, it's not that significant. I'm just picking up someone 8 in the morning and taking them 4 or 6 blocks, to their appointment. But, what happens then is the callers that are coming to New Mexico to access care, we're surrounding them with this community, with this caring community that says over and over every day, we care, we support you, and we trust you. And so when there's a different volunteer picking you up in the morning, and then someone else taking you back to your hotel, and someone else dropping off a care package with some frozen chicken pot pies and granola and orange juice, all of those little things, they add up to quite a bit. So that's kind of where we were with the pandemic until about 4 to 6 weeks ago. And if you've been following what's happening in the politics of abortion and reproductive health care, you know that Texas passed a law in May that went into effect September 1st, which effectively bans abortion in Texas. Anything after 6 weeks. And so in effect, that's almost a total ban in Texas. And so our caseload, our numbers have at least doubled, if not more. And our donors have come through. We've had more volunteers than we can onboard right now. We're scrambling to try to get them all ready to go and do the background checks. And so we've been extremely busy, but thanks to our funders, we've been able to hire some temporary additional staff. I've been able to authorize overtime, and we're going to get through this. Because we have to. It's just our reality now. But another thing that's helping us with that, and you talked about the year started out rough, and some things that we're doing that have gone right for us. So we were able to have our staff go back to our office in the spring, and we've moved actually into a brand new office space, same building but a new floor, and about doubled our space. And for me as the executive director, it was really affirming to have my staff come back to a space with new ergonomic sit-stand desks and beautiful artwork and fresh paint, and we our staff is able to work a combination of in the office and remotely, depending on what works for them. And so we applied to, and we've received a gold level certification as a family-friendly workplace, and that's something that I'm really proud of. And I'm especially proud of it because for those who oppose what we do, there's a narrative out there that says that we hate families, that we hate children. And so being certified as a family-friendly workplace to me says, no, that's the opposite of that we have staff who can bring their whole selves to work and work in a way that works for them and their families and their responsibilities. And so that's something I'm particularly proud of. If that's a good place to stop for questions, or what do you need from me?
Well, yeah, thank you very much, Joan, for that presentation. We definitely appreciate hearing all of that. So yeah, we can definitely open it up for questions. So if anybody in the audience has any questions, feel free to either unmute yourself or type it in the chat. And then, yeah, we'll be able to continue this conversation. I do just have a question to kind of get things started is, I think it's probably a common sense question, but I'm just not very familiar with it. But so can somebody from Texas just come over to New Mexico to get an abortion if needed, or does it need to be done within the state, or how does that work? And have you seen an increase in the number of people doing that since all of this stuff has happened?
Yeah, well, New Mexico has a kind of specialty abortion provider, abortion clinic here that serves people who need an abortion later in their pregnancy. And so we've always seen people come from other states. There are only 3 or 4 of these kind of specialty providers in the country. So we've always seen people come to New Mexico from other states. But if in terms of the specifics of the Texas law, yes, people from Texas can come to New Mexico and hopefully not be subject to the Texas law. Now that law is deliberately very vague, intentionally, and the state of Texas is not the enforcer there. They've abdicated their responsibility to enforce a law that they passed. The law is enforced by incentivizing private citizens through a $10,000 bounty to turn in people to sue them in court rather than having the state enforce it. And so the patients, the people accessing abortion care are not sued, but anyone who are so-called aiding and abetting. So that could be, of course, the doctors, the clinic staff, all the providers, but that could also be their neighbor who drives them. It could be their pastor that they talk to. It could be even someone as unrelated as a ride share that drops them off. It could be their employer who gives them the day off of work. It's intentionally really broad and vague. And so it's working exactly as they intended. It's created a real culture of fear and intimidation. And we are very busy with people who can make it from Texas, but we know we should be even more busy, that the number of people that we are seeing, the number of people who are also going to Oklahoma and Louisiana is very small compared to the normal rate of people visiting clinics in their own state of Texas. And so, but yes, people can come here, and I'm not a lawyer, but our lawyers have advised us that, of course, in New Mexico, we're not subject to a law in Texas. And even if we were, the Religious Coalition's roots are in an organization that was formed in 1969 called the Clergy Consultation Service. And this was an above ground, not undercover network of clergy, started in Greenwich Village in New York City, and grew to 1,400 clergy around the country. And their founder, Reverend Howard Moody, placed an ad in the New York Times that said clergy available for abortion referrals. And his answer was that they were not subject to a human law, to a secular law, but to a higher law. And that's how we are maneuvering right now with this Texas law. We're not subject to it. We're subject to a higher law, and that could be divine law, that could be our own personal conscience and morals and ethics. And so we're going to do what we need to do so people can get the health care they need.
Excellent. Thank you for that. You also mentioned, I think at the very beginning, that there are 12 states that have an organization similar to yours. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, so there are, there's about a dozen affiliates of the Religious Coalition. Our Oklahoma affiliate is also a member of the National Network of Abortion Funds. And our Oklahoma affiliate takes on the work of raising money to help people in Oklahoma pay their clinic fees. And then there are almost 80 abortion funds around the country and a few that are also international. You know, we're just so blessed to be able to connect with both and have just great support from both of our organizations.
Excellent. All right. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Let's see. Robert, do you have anything to add? Any questions for Joan?
Joan, I was just curious, how did you get into this work yourself?
Be careful what you volunteer for. I grew up in the Methodist Church. My mom was a nurse. She's a retired nurse. And when my children were young, I was part of a monthly women's group that met at my local church, and there was a speaker from what was then called the Religious Coalition for Abortion Rights, and it was just a fit for me between the values that I had been raised with in the Methodist Church and my parents, my mom, she doesn't use the word feminist, but you know, she kept her birth name when she married my dad in 1958, which was unusual. And she worked until I was born and went back to work when my brother went to first grade. So I had this great example of a strong woman and my dad who supported her. And I joined as a phone bank volunteer and eventually was asked to join the board. And then in the late 90s, early 2000s, the Ms. Foundation was doing some capacity building grants for small nonprofits, and we applied, and I was able to work part-time as in my previous life, I was an elementary physical education teacher. So I was able to shift to that to half-time and work half-time as the director of the Religious Coalition here in New Mexico. And eventually that's grown now into a staff of 5. And I'm just really proud of our team and everything we're doing.
It's always interesting to see how people, you know, fall into their roles and everything. So thank you again for sharing that with us. One other question that I thought of is, what are you looking forward to in 2022? Now that this 2021 is kind of wrapping up and we're looking into 2022, what do you see there that you're excited for?
Well, you know, I don't know. I think I'm facing 2022 with, you know, some optimism that we'll eventually get to some kind of new normal with this pandemic, and people will be able to work and live the way they want to, and that somehow simple things like masks and vaccines would not be so divisive. But I'm really facing 2022 with some pessimism. We have an important case in front of the Supreme Court from Missouri that has the potential to overturn the 1973 Roe v. Wade decision. And the court will be hearing that in December of this year and likely ruling on it in June of 2022. And so maybe for me, what I'm looking forward to is just knowing what's going to happen there. and then figuring out what to do.
Definitely. Yeah. It's always unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen. And so, yeah, finally knowing what happened is always nice to hear. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Let's see. Let's see if there are any other questions from the audience. Feel free, like I said, to unmute yourself or type in the chat. Cool. And if not, we always end with the same question to all of our panelists, and it's, what can this community do for you today? How can we help you?
You know, I think what people can do is work to change the narrative around reproductive health care and abortion. The National Network of Abortion Funds says everyone loves someone who's had an abortion. And we know that 1 in 4, at least 1 in 4 to 1 in 3 women will have an abortion in their lifetime. And so if you think that you don't know anyone who's had an abortion, you need to ask yourself why. Why are they uncomfortable sharing that with you? Abortion is safe. It's one of the safest healthcare procedures. It's legal. It's common, but we don't talk about it, and we need to start talking about it and normalizing it. And so I think that's that would be an important step for people to do, is to just start talking about it.
I think that is some good advice. Just start talking about it and making it more part of the, like you said, regular narrative. So
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Let's see. Robert, are you there? Cool. So I guess if we have no other questions for today, we can go ahead and wrap up a little bit early and give you all, an extra 5 minutes back in your day. So again, I really want to thank Bev and Joan for speaking to our audience today. I think that there was a lot of really good information that was shared and a lot of great resources that are available in this community. So thank you for that. We will be back next Tuesday. We will be hearing from the New Mexico Cancer Center. We know that they have confirmed, and we're waiting on the other speaker. But yeah, so next Tuesday, if you all can join us at 9 a.m. again here, we'd love to see you again.
Awesome. Thanks.
All
So
right.
have a big round of applause for our speakers today. Really appreciate them, and definitely thank you all. We will gladly relinquish your Tuesdays back to you. I hope everyone has a really great rest of your week, and we will see you next Tuesday for Back and Coffee. Take care, y'all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.